Alright my friends, welcome back to Frogboy X1 Gaming. I'm Andrew and today I'm going to talk to you guys about the problem I was having or experiencing with the XFX 7900 XTX. So, if you guys like this content, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Now, I'm going to show you guys something real quick. This is my new replacement card. And as you can see right above the 8-pin power supply thing, on the other card, it had like the center one had a red dot on it. And when you get onto XFX website, they tell you that there's a power delivery problem if you are experiencing that. Now, there was a bunch of other remedies out there. So let's go over these and see so that we can figure out what the problem I was having with mine. So I tried all the DisplayPort things. All of my DisplayPort cables are brand new cables. These are like this one here is a 16K. The other one that I've got hooked up to the other monitor is even it's like the same thing. So it wasn't a DisplayPort. I went through and checked each and every monitor I have, doing all that stuff, as well as the HDMI. So that there was not my problem. The light still remained. Now with mine, the light was intermittent. Like sometimes it would come on, sometimes it would come off. If I if I like bumped the wire or something, then it would come back on. Today I actually got up because this is the second day after just using a daisy chain. So I tried the daisy chain. I ran my first card, my first 8-pin in there, then daisy chained it to the second one, and then to the third one it was just another another full-on cable. As you can see, I have 3 full-on cables on mine. There's no daisy chaining to any of those. It's been 3 cables. That's the way I hooked it up originally, was the 3 cables, and the light in the center one would come on. So I did a little bit more digging in my specific case. Sometimes I guess people are changing out a DisplayPort and then it's going off. Well, here's the thing, guys. I've had that light. I was able to get that light to go off. And sometimes, from doing the work that I do, I'm always playing around with electrical. I'm always fixing, electrical circuits and stuff like that. But first of all, I want to kind of explain something like the daisy chain, just so that everybody knows. In your home, when you got the power that comes into your house, that is going to come in as 2-phase, 3-phase, 2 or 3-phase or whatever. It's like 220. Then it's going to come down and it's going to split off, and then it's going to go down to circuit breakers. You're going to get a circuit breaker for each circuit. Every circuit in a line is going to have multiple plugins like receptacles, as well as probably switches and lights. That is where your power delivery is. So each circuit on a circuit is going to deliver that. With your power supply, each one of those is a circuit too. You know what I mean? And it's all coming off the same rail, whatever. There are some PCI cables that are actually rated up to 280 freaking watts for just one. It depends on the gauge of your wire. If you're running a 16 gauge or an 18 gauge, or just how well your PSU is built. Some people are going to have better PSUs than others. Some people are going to buy cheap stuff and they're going to need, multiple freaking whole-on cables and stuff. So spreading the rumor out there that you absolutely have to have 3 cables, that's not always necessary. It's apparently in the PC world, it's rule of thumb, just like all the other wives' tales that come with PC gaming to get everybody all freaked out and worried and all that stuff. All you have to do is simply think about it for a minute, okay? All on their own, every cable, even the lowest ones, are rated for about 150 watts. So if you have 3 of them, that's 450 watts out of 3 of them. Plus, you also have 75 watts that's supplied to your GPU from the board, right from the PCIe slot itself. So that there's going to put you up well over your 400 or 355 watt recommended for this GPU. Now, this GPU has 2 BIOS. It has an overclock BIOS and a regular BIOS. If you put it in a regular BIOS, that should be closer to what the original AMD card is. The original AMD, the cards that they sell are 2 8-pin power supply connectors. So in theory, if you have it on the regular BIOS on the XFX card, you should be able to daisy chain and still be okay, still be within spec. Yes, they're going to be a little over or under. Most things in life are rated 25% higher You know, like when we do load tests on our cranes, we lift 125% of the rated maximum load for stress tests to see how things go. So yes, your wires over time will degrade if you do run too much power and current through them, but these things are so variable all the time, they're never fully pulling that full load. And maybe if they are, maybe if we're running a super intensive task, your PSU should shut down your system before anything happens. Now that I said should, that is the way the electronics work. That's something that should happen. Now, not everything is perfect. Some people are going to experience things that others wouldn't. In my case, on my GPU, on my specific GPU, my middle slot was, I think there was a short or not a short, but an open in one of the connectors that are soldered to the board. That's what I'm thinking. It's somewhere in there, because when I would move it or wiggle it, it would turn on, or the light would go on, or it would go off. If I move the wire if I move the thing in a certain way, it would go, the light would go off. So having my thing set in there with the daisy chain, it actually moved it over just enough to give it that contact so that I was getting the right power supply. The reason I took my card back and RMA'd it is because that is a potential later in life failure. That's going to fail eventually. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. Eventually that plug is going to fail because it is missing a contact. So you want to take this stuff kind of seriously. You want to try all the methods and all that stuff. Putting a new DisplayPort cable or any of that kind of stuff. See, these are the things that people start spreading around the internet. If you have a power delivery problem with your GPU and your power supply, the only wires on there you should be checking are the wires that are going from there to there. It really shouldn't have anything to do with the DisplayPort cable, but it is good to check that. But that could on 100% just be a coincidence. That could be a coincidence. But there is, I'm not going to say it's not possible, but just like when I changed the daisy chain and my light went out and it stayed out, we're talking a coincidence. When I put that back in there, maybe with the daisy chain, it was pulling it into position. So when I got to playing with it today, I just opened it and I went to touch it and the light came back on. I knew immediately to shut down my PC because we have an open contact somewhere on that freaking plug. So I went. I gotta give Amazon a shout out for making sure I got a new GPU today. No problems, no huss, no nothing. They asked me what was going on. I told them that I'd like to get a different one. They sent me one out before even having me send the other one back. So I was able to bring it in, hook it up, get everything running, and then run it back over. They just have you run it to Kohl's or something after. So I wanted to shout out to Amazon for having an incredible to your doorstep delivery, which is pretty cool. If it would have been Best Buy, I'd have had to drive down there and switch it out. I mean, this is the second card I've bought from Amazon, and that's pretty cool. Like, I feel good about that they were able to do that for me. So we got the new card in. If you're just calm and you're just patient when it comes to this PC stuff, my friends, then you'll understand. But if you're freaking out all the time and you're scratching your head and you just don't know what to do, you need to take a step back, take a couple of deep breaths, and realize that, yeah, there's some stuff that's going to just not work out of the box. Like, manufacturing defects happen. But then there's also user error, and then there's also maybe not plugging something in all the way. So yes, take your time. I know you're excited when you get something new. Take your time, figure it out, be okay. You know, you're gonna get there. You just bought it. You're gonna have the rest of your life to play around with it. And like I was saying in that video that I made the other day about, should I take my card apart and freaking no, don't ever do that. Just send it out and get another one. Send it out and get another one. Don't do that, especially if you don't know what you're doing, man. There's no reason to try to score a few extra clicks on YouTube trying to take something apart that you don't really know a whole lot about. Now, the other video that I made about the 3 8-pins and then using daisy chain for one of them, that is 100% dependent on you having a good power supply. If you have a good power supply, you know, at least, like, I would probably say I got a 80 plus gold. Mine's an 80 plus gold. It's a 1000 watt Corsair power supply. So I know this is a good one. It's got a 10-year warranty, all of that stuff. I know I got a good freaking power supply to run what I need to run from it. But if you have like a cheap one, some knockoff one that doesn't have interchangeable cords or anything like that, a lot of those have capacitors in them and other things that are going to like supply constant power and stuff, just because of the variable things that are in there. There's transformers obviously that are going to transform it from 120 volts down to like 12 volts or whatever that it's stepping everything down to. There is a lot of different places that could fail in your PSU that you might not know. I mean, that might not exist. But when we talk about daisy chaining something, every single plug in your house is a daisy chain. So it's all coming from one power supply, and if it's all on the same rail, and this is, you definitely do a little bit of research on your power supply, but if everything's coming from that same rail, that means all of that power is directly being fed from the same spot to the same cords. So yes, piggytailing from one plug to another is still going to give you that same current over to another plug. So you should, in theory, if you plug in, you know, a couple plugs and stuff, yes, once you start to get down, depending on how many amps, that's the big thing, is the amps, how much your amps are going to go down with consecutive things being plugged in. That's why if you got a toaster and a microwave and something else like a fridge all on the same thing, then they're going to suck a whole lot of power, and then it's going to pop your breaker and stuff like that. So yes, you do have to be running two of them with the daisy chain for something like 335 watts or up to 400 watts. You should be okay theoretically with that. If you're going to like 500-600 watts, then yes, 100% have 3 of them, just so that you have that efficiency, that power rating is there. But up to like 400 and something watts, like, you'll be fine. You will 100% be fine if you are using a good PSU, and you have like, if they're like 16 gauge wires or something like that, like, yeah, you're good. Like, you can run more current through that. You can run current through 16 gauge wire for like 50 feet or something. Like, like you can actually run that pretty far, like 14 gauge. Actually, I think 14 gauge. Yeah, I think you can get like 30 feet out of 40 feet. I'm not, you'd have to like get out the little calculator and find out exactly, but when it comes to electricity, yes, you can run those with 2 regulars and a daisy chain on that 3, especially on a 4080. Especially on a 4080, that thing's barely using like 300 watts. You could definitely do that. I wouldn't recommend overclocking once you get to that point, but you could definitely do it, and I think you'd be perfectly okay. So guys, if you want to be safe, plug in 3 cables. I have 3 cables plugged into mine. I have them. They were already there from the 4080, so I ran them in there. It's perfectly okay. If you're running like a 7900 XT, I don't think you should. You should definitely run 2 cables. Don't daisy chain that. But the rest of them, you probably might be okay, guys. You might be okay. So it's one of those things where it could, you know, it could mess things up if you got a cheap power supply, but if you got a good one, you might be all right. So, all right, my friends, thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in the next one, and have a good night.